So Dr. Ali Young, the title of Ali's speech is How I Saved £70,000 from Lighting a Fire in My Garden. Our first speaker is Dr. Ali Young. She was once asked on TikTok how many degrees she has, and subsequently found herself being described as an icon because she had to stop and count. The answer is actually 5 and includes philosophy, social work, family therapy, positive psychology coaching, and a doctorate in spirituality and well-being. Trained as a shamanic practitioner and a teacher of movement as a form of meditation, she has a meditation practice now dating back 30 years. She's published both poetry and academic work on spirituality in a variety of books and peer-reviewed academic journals. A dancer, an artist, a wife, and a mother, her most abiding interest is in how we can retrieve soulful living in a world riven with crisis, consumerism, and loss of meaning. So as someone who has traveled widely in landscapes of suffering, including violence, addiction, her own insanity, these are her words, remember, not mine, 2 premature children, and 3 bouts of cancer, you couldn't find a better guide for embarking on a journey of transformation. Here to talk to you about learning to listen to the signs of the soul along the way is Dr. Ali Young. Over to you then, Ali.
Thank you, Neil. I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, how am I still standing? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll get some insight as the speech progresses. So what if I was to tell you that you could access all of the wisdom that you would ever need? And what's more, that all that you would have to do to gain that wisdom is to learn to listen. Learn to listen, I can hear you ask. So who is this expert, this fount of information and knowledge? Would it surprise me? Would it surprise me? It wouldn't surprise me. Would it surprise you to hear me suggest that it's actually you, and that learning to listen to yourself and to your own soul is the most important life hack that you'll ever encounter? Now, maybe you don't have much of a relationship with your own soul. Maybe you don't even know what I mean by soul. What I mean by soul is having a unique blueprint, 9 billion years of evolution, and there's only ever been one of you, a unique blueprint, a unique offering that you came to the planet to give. That's what I mean by soul. Maybe your soul is desperately doing cartwheels up and down in front of you, trying to get your attention. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're like I was, mired in depression and anxiety, drama and addiction, haunted by the feeling that there has to be more than being told that it's a 9-to-5 job and the occasional excitement of a visit to the garden centre. So what if every feeling was a jewel and every discontent was a signpost along the road to reclaiming your own soul? I grew up with violence, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I know all too well the ways in which trauma can rob us of a sense of personal power. In my childhood, my escape was in music and dance. My mother put a plug, can you imagine, in these days of high tech, she put a plug on the gramophone record player that she'd been given for her 21st birthday. And whenever I felt overwhelmed by life, I would put music on and I would dissolve into the dance. Bowie or Bolan, Bach or Beethoven made no difference to me. The external response, which was to send me to ballet lessons, drove a wedge between me and my soul. The ritual humiliation in adolescence of school discos. I don't know if those of you outside of Britain have that particular form of ritual humiliation. Drove another wedge between me and my soul. Conventional ideas about what I was meant to do for education, another wedge, so that by the time I was in my early 20s, I was lost. I was out in the stratosphere somewhere, dissolving myself and disappearing into drugs and alcohol instead of dance. Simultaneously, volunteering in a drug rehabilitation centre, en route to training as a social worker and seeing absolutely no contradiction whatsoever between the one behaviour and the other. Until one day, one of the group workers, a Vietnam draft dodger, I think there might be somebody who knows who that is in the audience, sat me down and said to me that if I was really serious about helping other people, that the best place to start was with myself. So on his advice, I took up co-counselling, and it was on a fateful co-counselling weekend that I heard the music that would set the trajectory of my life for the next 4 decades and beyond, because we're still going. I hunted for that music high and low, like a blue-arsed fly, as we say in Glasgow. Nothing. Trying too hard. And then one day, I caught this little whisper on the wind, and I found myself at an art gallery called, believe it or not, the Third Eye Centre. And there, inside, on a magazine called Kindred Spirit, don't tell me the universe doesn't have a sense of humour, was the originator of the music. The article, which resonated through every cell in my being, led to a workshop, which led to the absolute knowing that I wanted to train to teach this work. What came next was 15 years of clearing the obstacles to doing that training. 15 years, not a quick fix. The work was very expensive and I was very disempowered around money in my late 20s. But eventually, there I was on the jumping off point, all of my work done, ready to go and train. And by this time, I had really learned to listen to myself, body, heart, mind, spirit. And instead of a green light, what was there? And a bloody stop sign, a red light. So, in spite of the fact that this really did not fit with my plans, I mean, I'm telling you, it did not fit with my plans, I took my own counsel and I let go. A few months later, it became clear why. I discovered that I had my son on board, a pregnancy that would culminate in a birth that was 2 full months early and certainly wouldn't have survived 2 trips across the Atlantic and back. So, flash forward 5 years, and 3 bouts of cancer had meant that my ever supportive husband was about to go bankrupt. This is where the £70,000 comes in. So I went out into the garden one night, I lit a fire, I took my drum in order to petition the spirits and ask for practical help. The answer was immediate. Go and look on the internet. I had never looked for a job on the internet in my entire life. And as though my hands were guided, imagine my absolute surprise when I came across a job description that looked as though it had been written by the gods and goddesses precisely for me. When I saw it, I knew that that was my job. A 3-year doctoral position to write a doctorate on leadership, spirituality, well-being and sustainability. I ended up doing actually a 5-year anthropological study of the movement medicine community. The university very kindly kept giving me teaching work after the first 3 years. and I got my doctorate in 2015. I trained and graduated as a teacher of conscious dance practice in 2016 with the School of Movement Medicine, and I now mentor apprentices and trainee teachers. I just had my first trainee teacher graduate a couple of weeks ago, and I think another one who's about to graduate this weekend is also in the audience. I'm really touched by that support. So what's the takeaway for you? Because you might not be in the least bit interested in dance, and that's not really the point. The point is about following your own thread. So if you were to ask me, what can I do on a daily basis to begin to learn to listen? If you can find just 5 minutes, especially at the beginning of the day, to sit with yourself, put your hands on your heart and ask, what do I feel really drawn to today? What do I need? And if you can listen and you can begin to act on those things, I promise you that the world around you will begin to respond. Remember to ask for help, because help is always available. I'm Dr. Ali Young. I now offer embodied soul coaching. I work with movement medicine and a number of other healing modalities. I think Neil's going to put my slide up with my contact details after I'm finished. There's nothing that I enjoy more than helping people transform disempowerment, because that is my mission. That's been the mission that I've been given. I now understand that I was given a lot of disempowerment so that I knew all about how to transform it. But before I go, I'd just like to leave you with a fragment of one of my poems. It's called Life is Always Listening to You. Are you listening to it? Sometimes the moments stretch on forever, and we forget that the question was ever asked in the first place, so that the answer comes as a shock or a surprise, because the soul appears in many a guise. Remember this though, for this I know. No question ever goes unheeded, and you are not alone. Thank you so much for listening to me this evening. I look forward to hearing from anybody that would like to get in contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.